even though there's millions of videos about narcissism, I feel that they don't quite capture the essence of what a narcissist is. Where even when I knew exactly what was a narcissist after I had gone through enough narcissistic abuse, I didn't quite grasp the concept of what a narcissist is. However, then came gang stalking, and that really allowed me to understand. Like, after the 7 years of gang stalking, now I can recognize a narcissist as soon as I see that person. And look, considering or taking into consideration the entire gang stalking experience, every single one of those people have so much in common, like so much in common. And even when I could see the behavior, the mannerisms, even when I could see it, because I didn't know how deep the malevolence of these people was, I allowed these people to be in my life, you know? So the truth is that even when I was very young, I have been surrounded by these people just as much as any of you have. However, the concept of gang stalking didn't make sense to me because I didn't really quite have an understanding of narcissism. And look, the truth is that gang stalking is literally narcissistic abuse in a big scale. And all of the narcissists work parallel to gang stalking. They all work in the same manner. You literally have a flock of narcissists trying to get in contact with you to manipulate you if you are a victim of gang stalking. And I want to explore gang stalking through more of an individual approach where it's not much about the directed energy weapons, about how there is a huge misinformation campaign done by all of these narcissists that is meant to drive people crazy. And this video, I want to start it with susceptibility. Look, I'm telling you this because gang stalkers have explained this to me without actually trying to give me information. Look, a gang stalker, his name was Maximus, and I worked with him at the O'Reilly Auto Parts in Imperial Beach. He said that gaslighting someone does something to the mind that they cannot comprehend, that their mind doesn't know how to process. And that is pretty much the truth because that is exactly how gang stalking makes targets of gang stalking susceptible to believe that directed energy weapons are being used on them. Narcissists don't see people as people. They see people as victims of their mind, where by saying things a certain way, by implying things, you can trick the mind of the person to tell the consciousness of the victim something very particular. Gang stalkers, narcissists, work with the minds of people. Narcissists don't see you as a person, but they pretty much see you as someone to manipulate. And look, the abuse that these people do, like they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They are very well aware of the impact that the things that they say to you, the things that they do are gonna impact your state of mind. They see you as a mind to be manipulated. They don't really even see you as a person. And what they do is create as much cognitive dissonance as possible so that your logical thinking process is fucked. Let's start talking about what is cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance? This is Google's AI overview of what is cognitive dissonance, and here we go. It says, cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort experienced when a person holds two contradictory beliefs, values, or attitudes, or when their behavior conflicts their beliefs. The information that I'm about to give you about cognitive dissonance is not going to be on Google because I'm pretty much going to explain to you how gang stalkers and narcissists manipulate people and make them stupid for narcissists to make the victims easier to manipulate. I tried looking for this information on Google, but it didn't want to give it to me. Like if you type online, how do I manipulate a person? Google is not going to tell you how to manipulate a person. Google is not going to tell you that gaslighting people and make them doubt their own perceptions is actively going to literally make a person stupid. And when you bombard a person with a lot of gaslighting, they will start mistrusting their own mind and they become easier to manipulate and to lie to. The entire gang stalking operation is literally cognitive dissonance. It's a lot of people doing cognitive dissonance to you. False accusations have such a high impact on people because it is a form of creating cognitive dissonance in a person. For example, even though I'm obviously sober, here on one of my live streams, I was getting accusations of being on speed. Like, for example, here at Brandon Scott says, get off the speed. So if enough people are telling you, get off the speed, you're going to feel stress and maybe a little disoriented because you know you're sober. So it's just weird to be getting these types of accusations from random people online, which is exactly why this is creating cognitive dissonance. Because look, if I would explain to you that these accusations have been made to me for 7 years, and let's say I've had a history with substances, and suddenly on live streams, I get people accusing me of being on there. Like, that's gonna imply that the person that wrote this comment knows who I am. You know what I mean? Because if you're living your life, no random person is gonna come to you and be like, get off the speed, so that implies that this person knows exactly who I am. But the impossibility of me being harassed by some person maliciously on my live streams with something so specific, like it really wouldn't make sense for any normal person. So there is where the first cognitive dissonance comes into place because it's something that is possible, highly unlikely though, but there's a freaking dog. Hang on, let me close the window. It's so annoying. Notice that aside from the accusations, I have someone openly admitting that they are attracted to animals, which is weird to, it's a weird thing to say when you are doing a live stream where you're working out. And I know that people can say whatever you want, but don't you find it strange? And in gang stalking, the impossibility, or in gang stalking, everything is made so that you have no evidence, so that you know what is being told to you. So everything is said in code. And you can immediately demonstrate this because who in their right mind would go online on a live stream where I'm just working out and a random person for no apparent reason would say, I'm only attracted to animals now. Like, don't you see that that's weird? So the fact that it's illogical for anyone to say that out of the blue in such a live stream should be very clear that this is in code, because it makes absolutely no sense for a random person to just put this on my live stream. You know what I mean? Like, it literally makes no sense. So I noticed that he has a picture of himself. Oh, that's not him. Let me see if he has videos. His screening is at CrunchGuy840. Let's see.
When you want to safely store and handle eggs, usually what you want to do is you want to make sure to wash them, unless they're excessively dirty, then you don't want to wash them because that kind of makes the dirt and the grime kind of soak into the egg. You want to keep it in these cartons,
So this is the guy that says he's attracted to animals. Did he make these? Also, they're private. So to anyone who isn't initiated in gang stalking, this I'm only attracted to animals now is gonna appear like a simple, how do you say, like an admission. You know what I mean? Like, this person is admitting to that. And the truth is that there is a combination of forms of harassment. There is an infinite an infinite number of ways that you can harass a person. And these weird things, such as an indirect accusation, is one of those ways to harass a victim of gang stalking. This is bluntly malicious, you know what I mean? But narcissists always do things that cause you cognitive dissonance so that you are unable to decide whether or not the narcissist has your back or not. So the difference between narcissists and gang stalkers is that narcissists do things in such a way that you're not supposed to truly know that they don't have your best interest in mind. They're gonna make sure that the abuse is so sparse to the point where you're simply unsure. However, gang stalkers, they don't care if you know they are after you or not. They are obtusely evil. They are obtusely malicious. But narcissists, they are malicious, but they care more about how they appear to the world and to the target. Like they actually care what the victim thinks of them. Well, going back to cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is caused by gaslighting or by imposing on the target things that can be interpreted in multiple ways. For example, let's say that I know you have a problem with speed, right? And we go clubbing, and I don't tell you that I have speed on me. So we go clubbing, and I keep you up as much as possible, and we have to drive back home, and it's 3 hours away. So you have to stay awake. And out of the blue, when you're tired, I can probably be like, "Oh, do you want a line?" So in the end, assuming that you take the line, it was your choice. It was you that made the decision. But I did the setup to increase the possibility of you saying yes. That is what narcissism is all about. Is in pushing you and other people around you to make it highly likely for you to take a particular decision. The narcissist at that point, it doesn't care about how that decision is gonna impact you, but rather on what they can do with you or to you if you are under their influence. Understand that narcissists and gang stalkers are always trying to do one thing: to wear you down, to lower your self-esteem, and make you destroy yourself. That is gang stalking. Their actual, I mean, narcissism and gang stalking. Sorry, force of habit. That is the modus operandi of a narcissist. They simply want to manipulate you into doing what they want you to do. And the reason that they typically select people that are on the top of their game is because they have a very volatile sense of value. Let me explain this to you. Let's assume that I'm a narcissist, right? I'm a narc. So, I know what I have, I know who I am, and I know that I'm a manipulator and my life is only all image. But I don't feel like I have any true accomplishment. So if I meet someone that makes more money than me, has a nicer car, has a good life, and this person came from nothing and was completely self-made, and me, that I'm a narcissist, I had everything, yet I didn't do anything productive with my life, that is gonna literally destroy the self-esteem or the self-value of the narcissist, because the narcissist is continuously comparing themselves to others. So how they value themselves is super volatile. It depends on who they are around with, who they are around. And whenever there is someone that you see is better than you, that you have that you're offended. You're offended because you feel inferior to a particular person. That is gang stalkers and narcissists. Not all gang stalkers though, because gang stalkers, when you are down, they want to make sure that you don't come up, and they know that you're doing well for yourself. And look, and I'm telling you this because I have had a lot of gang stalkers that had everything going for them, but they still participated. So I'm assuming that they feel like they have to participate in gang stalking. Now, in regards to narcissism, if you are a nobody or someone that doesn't really show off how amazing they are, that they don't feel threatened by, their sense of value isn't threatened by you, they're not going to try to attack you. Or they're only going to try to attack you if they somehow feel opaqued by your luster. And when someone feels opaqued by your luster, they can do two things. They can either prove to themselves that they want to level up, or destroy you, or take that which makes them feel less away from you. I'm going to give you an example. Look, I've always been a very honest person, and I've always enjoyed having a good vocabulary. And this happened when I was dating this DJ named DJ Dan De Leon. He was the biggest narcissist I have ever experienced. Biggest ever. And look, so I don't know, remember what we were talking about, but I remember I said the word ameliorate. And look, the word ameliorate in Spanish means mejorar, to get better. So I said, oh, I need to ameliorate blah 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 blah. And I remember that he snapped, and he was just like, that's not the right word. And I was like, well, give me an example of what a proper use of that word is. And he was like, I don't know, but that's not the right word. So the truth, like when he left, I looked it up again to make sure, and it was indeed the right word. I've had this word in my vocabulary since I was in like high school. So I should have known better. The truth is that I didn't understand people with narcissistic personality disorder enough for me to be able to recognize that. Like that is very clear evidence that he felt hate towards my vocabulary because I was using a word that was correct. I was using it in the right context. And this person was like, that's not the right word. What is it? And he didn't even know. That's why he got so mad because he didn't know. And when I asked him, well, what is it? Well, I don't know, but that's not the right word. Like, if you are correcting me in a word that I'm using and you don't know the proper way of using that word, how do you know it's right? I mean, how do you know it's wrong? You don't. So, I didn't think much of it. I didn't think much of it when I was younger. But now that I went through so much harassment by so many of these tactics, by so many people for so long, I can see a narcissist, because they all have the same purpose to make you feel less. And the thing is that you can see when they react when someone hurts their ego. You can see it. They do like a little jump, and they don't even know that they do this, but they do like a little snap. So additionally, he responded to me with hate. That's not the right word. Like if he was mad. So if you are a victim of gang stalking or you want to understand narcissism more, anytime you say something or do something or are something that hurts at the ego of the narcissist, they're gonna look at you upset for being you, which is freaking crazy. Or they're gonna set you up. Look, this same person, Dan De Leon, he also tried to get my integrity away from me. And it's like, how do you take someone's integrity away? I'm gonna tell you. I have always been known for being obsessed with my teeth. Look, so like this is like my teeth. They used to be whiter and brighter. Like they're right now. They're right, but they used to be whiter and brighter, and they used to be straighter actually. Well, first of all, one of my exes literally threw my retainers away. Yeah, one of my exes threw my retainers away. Second, now the Dan De Leon, the DJ Dan De Leon, his name, whatever his name is. Look, he told we were hanging out, and we had just come from a get together. And as soon as we got to my place, he said, whenever someone asks you about how do you get your teeth so white, you tell them that you just brush them, floss, and that's it. You don't tell them your tricks. I didn't think anything of it. He told me you're supposed to say that they are natural, and I was like, okay, all right, I guess. I'd never even thought much of it. So inevitably, it happened. We were walking down a street in Hillcrest, and someone asked me, hey, how do you get your teeth so white? And I said, oh, I just brush them. And Dan, he immediately was like, you're a liar. You whiten them with Crest whitening strips, and you use whitening mouthwash, and then you use this Oral-B special toothbrush, and he was trying to frame me as a liar, So he literally set me up to make me appear like a liar in front of everyone. And after he said that, I reacted and I was like, you're the one that told me to tell anyone that asks me how I have my teeth so white to tell them that I just brushed them. And he just went, oh, that's true. And that's it. But he literally, the first thing that he did was throw me under the bus, dude. Because I said something that he himself recommended me to say. When someone sets you up like that, you have to get rid of that person, And again, I didn't know any better. Now I know. But that was a setup. And every person that I have met who is a narcissist, for some reason, they have all tried to inculcate into me substances. All of them. All of the narcissists have been trying to inculcate into me a habit of using substances. Always, 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 always. So in the end, this has resulted in a huge familiarity. And, gang stalkers and narcissists, they do the same tactics. They do the same tactics. They all want you to wear your body down and wear your mind down and push onto you cognitive dissonance to the point where you kind of just allow it to happen. So the truth is that the clues have always been there. The clues have always been there. They always were. But I didn't know what these red flags, how red and big these red flags were. So if anyone is trying to has set you up to embarrass you in front of anyone, regardless of how you feel about that person, you have to get rid of that person like urgently, like yesterday, because they are trying to prove to themselves that they are better than you, and they're not gonna do it. Look, if I was with a narcissist and this narcissist would try to prove to me that he's better than me by actually improving themselves, I would have zero complaints, no complaints. But they don't do that. They never want to address their own behavior. Instead, what they try to do is try to bring you down so that they feel entitled to that amelioration of how they see themselves compared to you. That would be 100% valid. Like, hell yeah, I would support anyone that would use comparing themselves to someone else as a form of making themselves better. But the moment that you are trying to destroy someone else, that is disgusting behavior. That's disgusting. And that is exactly narcissism. Narcissists actively try to take away at your best traits. And they don't even care about it being true, because look, I'm gonna tell you another story with this same Dandelion. You can go online and just type in DJ Dandelion and you're gonna find out exactly who he is, by the way. So one time, like, I have always been obsessed with my posture. Always, always, always. I had an obsession with my posture. Like, my entire life, I have worked to being the best I can possibly be in every single way, shape, and form that I have control over. Always. And and look, this Dan, he came to me while we were hanging out, and just out of the blue, for no apparent reason, he said, one time, someone came up to me and said, "Oh my God, you have such an amazing posture. You have the best posture I have ever seen, ever on anyone." I'm not kidding, dude. This is not a joke. But look, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's possible. But what gave it away is not what he said, but the tone of voice that he used to say it. Because when a gang stalker or a narcissist is talking to you in order to let you know, or in order to convince themselves that they are better than you, they're gonna talk to you with a tone of hate. So the tone of voice will tell you what they're trying to do with what they say. Like, the tone of voice of a person says a lot of the intentions of what the words that come out of their mouths are meant to do. So if I was gonna tell someone that someone told me that I had the best posture, I would be like, Efren, someone told me that I had like the best posture, dude, and I would be happy about it. I'd be like, isn't that cool, or that made me feel so good. But it would sound with that tone of voice. But when he has the intent of being malicious, of making the target of that feel less, it would be said like this. So someone came up to me and told me that I had the best posture that I have ever seen. I was at a party and they said that I had the best posture. And like, you can read their face and you can hear the tone of voice, and it's gonna be sharp. Like, there's gonna be some spikes in the it's gonna be, how do you say? You're gonna see the envy in the face and in the tone of voice. Like, you can hear it, you can see it. So one thing that I can tell you is to believe the tone of voice and the facial expressions on how to get what the intentions of what they're trying to say are. Like, one day, in when I was being not one day when I was being gangsta, but like 4 years ago, when I felt that my third eye opened, I began noticing the incongruences with what people said, how they said it, their mannerisms, their intentions. It just happened one day where I was able to see everything. But I didn't believe it because it was way what my intuition told me and what the people told me with their body and with their tone of voice. It was gang stalking, but I refused to believe it because it made no sense. You know what I mean? Like I was like I didn't even think gang stalking was real back then. So it didn't make sense that so many people would be harassing me purposefully. It just didn't make any sense. So I ignored it. I ignored it, but I was living the consequences of ignoring it. I was experiencing them. But I didn't trust my observations. I didn't. Because it just didn't make any sense. It was so unbelievable that I decided to ignore my own intuition. So that is more cognitive dissonance. That your intuition is telling you something, but you're gonna have a bunch of people telling you that you're wrong. That's why when you confront a narcissist, they're always gonna tell you, "Oh, well, you're wrong." Just like Dan told me about the word ameliorate. Even though I knew I was right, he kept telling me that I was wrong, even when I knew I was right. And that does something to your mind, man. So whenever anyone imposes onto cognitive dissonance, look, you're better off trusting your own intuition than allowing anyone else to dictate your beliefs. Trust your intuition 1,000% because look, even when you don't know this, like your mind is able to catch on to the facial expressions, the tones of voice, the movements, if they are soft or sharp. Your mind can tell all of these things. Your mind can tell when someone is lying. When someone is lying, the tone of voice of the person is going to give it off. So don't even question your intuition. But look, the one thing that your intuition tells you that it doesn't tell you is when the whole person is rotten. That's the one thing that I was never taught is that a lot of these people are rotten from the very beginning. Like just like people that are bullies, they never really change. They just do the bullying in ways that makes it easier for them to get away with it. That's the truth. So whenever anyone is bullying you indirectly and you know that it was set up so that you really don't have any evidence of their intentions, just know that that is part of the bullying. It's meant to be cognitive dissonance. So any person that is causing you a lot of cognitive dissonance where you know that they are doing things for something, but you can't prove it, but just know that that person is not going to change. And they have always been like that. They have always been like that. And narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, chihuahuas, gang stalkers, all of them know that the more they play tricks on your mind, the more blinded you're going to be to their harassment. So please understand that a setup, a throwing you under the bus, anyone that is actively trying to make themselves feel superior to you, anyone that is always saying that you're wrong, even when you know you're not, anyone that tells you to lie, is especially dangerous when you have the habit of trusting people blindly. Trusting people blindly is the biggest mistake I've ever made. The biggest. So my new approach to life that literally is the approach that has alleviated me from this continuous stream of narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, chihuahuas, and gang stalkers is by understanding that there are people that are gonna project their insecurities onto you, that they're gonna hate you for being you, dude. And to most people that have never experienced that hate, all of this talk about narcissism and sociopathy and gang stalking isn't gonna make sense. But look, you don't need it to make sense to everyone. The truth is that whenever it's only until you experience it that you look for information about it because it's not a topic that you're interested in until you have lived it. So most of the videos I have made here are about narcissism. I mean, gang stalking. But the truth is that narcissism is part of gang stalking. It is. It's the same. It's the same machine. And these people literally work together to destroy someone. And you have to believe what the body, the tone of voice says of the person because the body really doesn't lie. But look, on the tone of voice, I would trust the tone of voice more than the body. But you cannot ever control all of those points of observation. With practice, you can increase your ability to understand more. So first of all, you don't tell anyone what you're trying to learn. You don't. Because the moment that you do, that's when they can manipulate you by actively moving their facial expressions. You know what I mean? So you don't tell anyone what you're learning. Look, you understand. You have to understand the person, what they're coming, where they're coming from, who they are, how they dress, how they make you feel. Do they respect your time? Do they respect your boundaries? Do they ever throw you under the bus? Do they somehow appear mad for some reason? Do they put pressure on you? And how do they make you feel about yourself? Do they disrespect you? Do they make you feel less? And when a person doesn't do any of those things, that's when you have like a very green flag, you know. But you have to really trust your instinct. Like you have to trust your instinct, and just know that adult bullying is a lot more sinister because they have years of experience. But what's gonna show you if a person is a narcissist or a gang stalker or not is by pretty much keeping in your mind almost like a profile of the person, where over time you keep adding things that they do, say, or make you feel. Like how has their existence impacted your life for the most part? And you don't look at it like, have they tried to wear you down? Do they abuse you? Is their behavior incongruent? Do they accuse you of things that you know you didn't do? Do they ever apologize? Are they trying to gaslight you? Are they producing cognitive dissonance inside of in your mind? And look, not all of the cognitive dissonance is malicious, but when you have enough cognitive dissonance for long enough by the same person, and when they see how their impact in your life is causing you trouble, that's when you know that there's something very wrong. Like honestly, always keep in your state of being. You always have to be continuously monitoring your principles. Like if someone is helping you get better values, take care of yourself better, be better. And when someone does the opposite of that, that's when you know that you have to get rid of them. So in the end, the best way has way too many dimensions to simply say with a snapshot. But it's easy for me to say when someone is a gang stalker because you can feel the malice inside of in the comments, you know, like it is obtusely malicious. You know what I mean? Like, and it's really out of place. It's obtusely malicious. But narcissism is malicious in a softer way, but it can be just as lethal as gang stalking. All right? If you do not know who I am, hello, my name is Efren Rodriguez Guerrero, fitness professional. I have dealt with a lot of narcissism and I have experienced gang stalking firsthand. The goal of this channel is to pretty much explain everything about narcissism and gang stalking to the point where it makes sense, to the point where people can see one and immediately make the decision to get that person out of their life. You know, after all of my years of experience with these types of toxic people, I can clock them even when they breathe. I know it's a crazy thing to say, but I can clock them right away. Like I can just clock them, you know. So in the end, please understand that anyone that takes you off of your best path, anyone that is trying to demoralize you, or someone that is constantly directly or indirectly telling you that you are not enough, is not your friend, especially when they try to dress themselves as one. That's very, very dangerous and can literally have a severely negative impact in your life. If you're enjoying this content, please support the channel by liking, subscribing, sharing. Any of those ways are free and easy ways to support the channel. However, if you would like to go above and beyond in showing your support, please consider becoming a member to the channel. Less than $5 a month, or you can make a donation to my PayPal. There is a link to it in the description of the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on my next video. Bye!